basic rules and which we are following, that is to keep the microphone muted. And if you have any question, please type it in the chat box, or like yesterday, I'll stop somewhere and like try to take your questions. And today's topic is about public healthcare administration system, health financing, and the policies. So by the end of this class, you should understand how healthcare evolved in India, how rural and urban health systems are organized, why healthcare financing matters, how policies they shape India's public health outcomes. And I also believe that after today, if you visit a primary health center or if you hear about Ayushman Bharat, you will understand the system behind it. So what we are going to discuss today, we are going to discuss the overview of healthcare delivery system, integrated healthcare, public health models, healthcare financing and the insurance. So you see all these topics are interconnected, okay? Like a health policy that decides financing priorities, then financing that affects the infrastructure, and infrastructure that affects health outcomes. So always think healthcare as a system, not isolated compartments. So India had organized medical knowledge thousands of years ago. Our ancient texts like Rig Veda, Atharva Veda, they describe diseases and the treatments. Ayurveda developed because of India had rich biodiversity and medicinal plants. Then we had ancient universities like Takshila and Nalanda. And can you imagine that they formally taught medicine? So medical education like existed in India long before modern universities in many countries. And ancient Indian medicine focused strongly on hygiene, diet, exercise, prevention, disciplines. And these are all concepts of modern public health, like what modern public health is promoting nowadays. Now, if we think of like indigenous system of medicine, what we can see that there are multiple systems of medicine, like Ayurveda, Unani, and Siddha. Each evolved from different historical and cultural influences. Unani, this system came through Persian and Arab influence during Muslim rule. Siddha evolved mainly in Tamil Nadu. Ayurveda developed from Vedic traditions. And even today, millions of Indians use these systems along with modern medicine. So I just have a question. Why do you think traditional medicine still remains popular even in this era of modern hospitals?
Madam, I'll tell you because these medicines, Ayurveda, Unani, or Siddha, what you are talking about, the side effects are negligible or very minimal. And what happens with the allopathic medicines, what we all are having, there are always some side effects described with the patients. So patients know that these medicines can cause some harm to our body, and if it is giving any benefits, so they have to weigh the harms and benefits of these modern medicines. But the ancient medicines which were tried and tested over the years and still holds place in Indian scenario. So this could be the reason what I could explain.
Okay, thank you, sir. Others, any opinion? Okay, so like pre-independence era, okay, that time what happened that during British rule, Healthcare mainly focused on cities, and we had curative services. Hospitals were built in urban commercial centers because these areas were economically important. Preventive services were introduced at a later stage, mainly to control epidemics like plague or cholera. Healthcare planning during this period was poorly connected to community need. So, just like colonial governments most probably became interested in public health only when the disease threatened the administration or trade. But that's what which was happening that time. Then what happened that this slide is important, and this slide shows also some important transition. Then the idea emerged that the government is responsible for maintaining public health. And you see even today also vaccination program, sanitation drive, epidemic control, they are considered as government's responsibility. But historically, this was not always accepted. So, this is one of the very important committee in Indian public health history. The Bhore Committee, this was established in the year 1943. It was chaired by Sir Joseph Bhore. It submitted its report in 1946. The major recommendations were universal health care, integration of preventive and the curative services, establishment of primary health centers. This is a very important one. Community participation. This committee laid the foundation of India's modern healthcare system. Then we have started having primary health care, primary health center. The first primary health center was established in 1952 under Community Development Program. This was something revolutionary because healthcare started, reaching the villages rather than remaining city-centered. Primary health centers became the backbone of rural healthcare. Some other committees we'll see. The Kartar Singh Committee. This committee introduced the concept of multi-purpose health workers. Just imagine that villages could have one worker for malaria, one worker maybe for family planning, another for immunization. So instead of separate workers for each of these programs, one integrated workforce was proposed. And this improved efficiency and reduced the duplications. We also had Srivastava Committee. This committee emphasized community participation, community health volunteers, and this also gave lots of emphasis on medical education. Something called ROME scheme, reorientation of medical education. Under this, the community medicine departments was given lots of importance, and it was said that health centers need to be attached to this department. So this slide looks crowded, but in this slide, what I have tried to do, I tried to make actually like a list of all the committees and the major recommendation which was given by these committees. So we have discussed about 4 committees that these recommended the integration of preventive and the curative services. These also spoke about establishment of primary health centers. Then came Mudaliar Committee. Mudaliar Committee spoke about upgradation of the health facilities, mobile health units, creation of central health cadre, and expansion of national disease controls programs. The Chadha Committee, this came in the year 1963. This gave lots of importance on malaria surveillance. Okay. This did the integration of malaria surveillance with general health services. The Mukherjee Committee, the main importance of Mukherjee Committee was on family planning program. And this committee delinked malaria activities from family planning programs. The Jangalwala Committee, this emphasized integration of health services, and this also said something important: elimination of private practice by government doctors. The Jain Committee in the year 1966, this reviewed hospital services and central CGHS. The Kottar Singh Committee, we discussed a little bit about it. This introduced multi-purpose worker scheme. And Srivastava Committee, we discussed also about this, that this committee spoke about village level health committees, health workers, village level health guides, spoke about community participation, and also the Rome scheme. We discussed the Rome scheme of Srivastava Committee. So what are the implications of this committee? You see, these committees, they collectively shaped India's healthcare delivery system, and the system evolved gradually. All these systems, all these committees, they were instrumental in developing the system where we now see primary health centers, we see multi-purpose health workers, we are talking about community participation and integration of the services like preventive, therapeutic, rehabilitative services. So you understand that the public health system, what we are seeing today, that was not built overnight. A lots of thought, a lots of work has gone into it. Now let's talk about this program, that is Minimum Needs Program. This was launched in the year 1974. Yesterday we had discussed about social determinants of health. That was one of the slide. So this program gave lots of importance on rural infrastructure, safe drinking water, nutrition, immunization, health of the mother and the child. So this is the program which recognized that health depends on social determinants. Now let's come to National Rural Health Mission. This was launched in the year 2005, and this really has transformed rural healthcare. The main goals were affordable healthcare, better infrastructure, community participation, and through this mission, we saw another cadre of worker, that is a ASHA worker, accredited social health activist. Later, NRHM became part of National Health Mission, NHM. So, what are the objectives of NRHM? The key objective was to increase healthcare access, okay? Then improve quality. Quality was not spoken that much before, but gradually importance on quality has started. So this program emphasis was on improving quality. Then promote equity, involve Panchayati Raj institutes, okay, Panchayati Raj institution in healthcare system, in healthcare delivery system, and integrate Ayush system in the health system. So the basic aim of NRHM was to decentralize the healthcare. The core strategies was, as the aim was to decentralize healthcare, decentralize health system. So it was to empower the Panchayati Raj institutes. Okay. Start village level health plans, strengthening of sub-centers and primary health centers. Then implementing Indian public health standards. We spoke about quality. So we saw implementation of Indian public health center standards. Let's see what type of infrastructure we have at different levels, starting from national level to village level. So at the national level, we have Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So we have got Director General of Health Services and Director General of Health Services provide technical advices. And the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and DGHS is to coordinate with the state health departments. The objective is to support universal healthcare accessible to all, especially the vulnerable group. So you see, at the national level, the main work is to provide policy direction, technical guidance, and coordination. At state level infrastructure, at states actually are the primarily responsible for healthcare delivery under Indian Constitution. State governments manage hospitals, PHCs, implementation of most of the public health programs. We'll discuss them in details in like when we'll be reading about module 3 that time, sanitation. So this is the work of state level. In state level, we have got State Ministry of Health, which is headed by the minister, and we also have got we have a State Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And this is headed by Principal Secretary of Health and Family Welfare and assisted by other secretaries and officials. So administrative functions are managed through Health Secretariat. At the district, administration is mainly headed by Chief Medical Health Officer or District Medical Officer. And these officers are very crucial because districts are the places where most of the implementation occurs. Okay, at this level, what we see, most of the implementation occurs. Now, at the block level, what we have got community development blocks. So community development blocks serve as the units for planning and development. Each block generally includes about 100 villages with a population of around 80,000 to 1,20,000. And this is administered by a block development officer. So at the block level, what we have got, community health center. And community health center also work as a first referral center with the specialist, or also known as first referral unit. Okay. Usually these CHCs, some of the CHCs what you see, they have been upgraded by existing primary health centers, or new CHCs also have been created. So usually we see a CHC roughly for around 1 lakh population. So this is what the CHCs, what happens that we have got specialists here. Typically you see 4 specialists here. These 4 specialists are medicine, surgery, obstetrics, and pediatrics. So just think of CHCs as a mini rural hospital. They also provide emergency care facilities. So primary health centers are the first point where a doctor is available. Okay? At the village level, it's the first point where a doctor is available. Usually, in the plain area, you see one primary health center for every 30,000 population, and in difficult terrains, like in tribal areas or in the hilly areas, you see one PHC for 20,000 population. So PHC function as a referral unit from the sub-centers. Sub-center, again, sub-center is the first contact point between community and the health system. Okay? So primary health center is the point where you see the doctor, lowest level where you see a doctor, and sub-center is the most peripheral point of contact between the community and the health system. Typically, we have one sub-center for every 5,000 population. Again, in difficult areas like hilly areas, tribal areas, we have got one sub-center for every 3,000 population. Usually, one sub-center is staffed by ANM, male health worker, and ASHA worker. Accredited social health activists, they are ASHA workers. So what role these ASHA workers, they serve? They work for immunization, health education, nutrition, referral services, and basic supplies. Okay. So they work very closely with the Anganwadi workers. So we have another very good system, that is ICDS, Integrated Childhood Development Services. This ICDS scheme, this works under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Okay. But at village level, this ICDS system, in which we have got Anganwadi centers and the Anganwadi workers, and the health system, where we have got multipurpose workers and the ASHA workers, they work side by side. Okay. So Anganwadi centers, these are the places where immunization happens, antenatal care services are given, nutrition services are given, and also many village days are observed. Okay. So these are like the hubs for village health activities. So this village health and sanitation committee, we at the village level, we have got a committee that is known as Village Health and Sanitation Committee. This is an important community-based institution under NRHM. This committee promotes local participation in healthcare planning and implementation at the village level. So at village level, we have got some untied fund which can be used for emergency transport, referral services, health awareness activities, and maintenance of village health records. So members are trained to identify local health problems, organize village health meetings, and encourage community participation. Do you remember, like yesterday we spoke about participatory learning activities, and we have seen a list of those participatory learning activities like transect work, systematic work, brainstorming, okay, field visits, case study, incident case analysis, community surveys, all these methods, okay, they are used to train the people. This committee, like Village Health and Sanitation Committee, this committee also supports the work on sanitation, nutrition, and mother-child health activities. So you understand that what we are talking, that the principle that public health becomes more effective when communities themselves participate in planning and monitoring health services. So this committee has been formed so that these activities can be carried out. So the implementation of NRHM that depends on proper coordination and decentralization at every administrative level. Okay. So states are expected to strengthen management systems at district and block levels by creating trained health management teams. District health missions are responsible for local planning and supervision, right? The decentralized district health action plan, they are considered the foundation of NRHM because health problems, that vary from one district to the other district. Like one district that may struggle with malaria, while another district that may face malnutrition, another district may be having maternal mortality. So therefore, flexible local planning is necessary for effective implementation of the program. So NRHM has created several institutional mechanisms at different levels. And why this has been created? To improve coordination and accountability. So these committees, you can see like the list of the committees, and let's go through the list. These include, and one we just have discussed in details, like the Village Health and Sanitation Committee, the Gram Panchayat and the Sub-Center Committee, PHC level committees, Block Health Mission, District Health Mission. At the national level, the National Mission Steering Group and Empowered Program Committee, they supervise policy and implementation. All these structures we have got, they improve planning and community participation, and they also help to monitor healthcare services. So if you look at this system, you understand that this reflects the idea that healthcare delivery requires participation from both government institution as well as local communities. So that's why community health, again what we had discussed yesterday, is very important. The block level health mission, this is responsible for integrating primary, secondary and tertiary care services within the block.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, your slides are not visible.
Okay.
Megha, it is visible to most of us.
Okay, then sir, I must be having some problem from my side.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
happens. If you just can leave and then join, sometimes that helps. Okay. Very crude method, but helps.
Okay, ma'am, I will try.
Okay. So block level health mission is responsible for integrating primary, secondary and tertiary healthcare services within the block. This mission, this supervises the ASHA workers and ensures proper referral and transport systems for the patients, right? Like from village, the patients has to reach to a health center. This mission also coordinates between Ayush and the allopathic systems and ensures that the supply of medicine and health materials, like the logistics to the villages. So by connecting different levels of healthcare, the block health mission strengthens continuity of care and improve healthcare access in the rural areas. The district health mission, this prepares, and we I think mentioned this earlier also, that this prepares district health plan and monitor implementation of the national health programs. The district health mission worked very closely with the panchayats, NGOs, and community-based organizations. Their responsibilities include strengthening training institutions, supporting data analysis, research, maintain a transparent procurement system. This procurement system is very important, and improve referral services. Okay. So this district level health mission, this is very important because they are translating the policies, okay, what has been formed at the national level and the state level to the practical action at the local level. So again, like just a repetition, and repetition helps us to remember and understand that at the state and the national level, the governments, they provide technical guidance, training, monitoring, procurement system that has been in the place, and coordination between the departments. So these levels are responsible for policy formulation, financial allocation, and quality assurance. Other important things like what is there, like from these levels, like transparencies, accountability, and intersectoral coordination, those are being emphasized. And at these levels, the authorities, they also coordinate with development partners and professional organizations to strengthen the healthcare system. So we are talking now about organizations, especially non-governmental organizations. These organizations, they play important role in healthcare delivery, especially the areas which are underserved and remote areas. NGOs help in community mobilization, behavior change communication, training of health workers, and implementation of the health programs. They often work very closely with vulnerable population, and they also help to improve access to healthcare services in some of the places where government infrastructure may be weak. So NGOs have a very big role in our system. Now coming to private sector. So you see, like private sector, they are the major provider of healthcare services in India. There are different studies like National Sample Survey Organization, they have done studies. The National Council of Applied Economic Research. All these studies, they have shown that a large proportion of the people, they seek treatment from private providers. And there are reasons like why they seek treatments from the private providers, because of accessibility, shorter waiting time, and perceived quality of care. Now remember, this private sector, this is like very vast, okay? Like there are very small clinics, or like the doctors who are not formally recognized, known as registered medical practitioners, but they are not registered, works, or like big corporate hospitals. Yeah. So it's very vast, but like what is important, that this private healthcare, this contributes significantly to out of pocket expenditures, because patients, what they are doing, they are paying directly for consultation, they are paying directly for the medicines and the investigations. Okay. So this private sector, they account for nearly like half of the hospital services in India. So India's healthcare system, we see a dual pattern. The public sector, what we see, that is focusing mainly on the preventive healthcare services such as immunization, disease control, sanitation, health education, especially in the rural areas. Okay, and private sector, what we see that they are mainly providing the curative services and usually dominating the urban healthcare. So this difference, you can understand there is an unequal distribution of healthcare infrastructure and the resources between rural and the urban regions of the country. So we have discussed about like NGOs. So these NGOs are important partners in healthcare delivery. And as we said, like they work directly with the communities and they are often more effective in changing social attitude and the behaviors. So some of the programs where they are working very well, they are like family planning, sexually transmitted disease control program, especially the HIV program, National AIDS Control Program. For the targeted intervention, I think we'll discuss a little bit when we'll discuss module 3, the national health programs. Then school health programs and women's empowerment activities. Now we are going to discuss a very interesting part, the alternative system of medicine and holistic medicine. So the alternative medicine, this includes medical system outside the conventional modern medicine. These systems are also known as complementary medicine, integrative medicine. So Ayurveda, homeopathy, yoga, naturopathy, these are all included under these approaches. And these often emphasize on natural healing, prevention, lifestyle modification, and holistic well-being rather than only treatment of disease. Okay, sir was saying, like when I said, like why you think people are still using this, so then sir mentioned that this may be the reason. So we have got a Ministry of Ayush. Okay, Ayush stands for Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy. This ministry was established in the year 2014 to promote traditional Indian system of medicine. This ministry works to improve educational standard, strengthen research, conserve medicinal plants, and develop quality standards for Ayush medicine. So this ministry reflects India's attempt to integrate traditional medicine with modern healthcare system. So here we are talking now actually about holistic healthcare, and holistic healthcare focuses on complete physical, mental, social, and the spiritual well-being as per WHO's definition, that this is not merely, health is not merely an absence of a disease, but a complete state of well-being. Holistic healthcare integrates preventive, promotive, curative, and rehabilitative services. And now, Government of India is supporting multiple systems of medicine, including modern medicine as well as Ayush system of medicine. So we'll see them like individually. Ayurveda is one of the oldest system of medicine. and this focuses on harmony between body, mind, and environment. Like as you said, like Ayurveda developed long time back, and that time, like environment used to play a big role, right? Like season is changing, harvesting is changing. With that, like we can use the animals for harvesting. We get different diseases at different times. So concept came that time that there need to be harmony between body, mind, and environment. It emphasizes on healthy lifestyle, balanced diet, exercise, and ethical living. So this is based on concept Tridosha and Panchabhuta theory. So this talks about prevention and maintenance of health, and this is the central principle of Ayurveda. So I really try to make a table just to highlight these features. So you see the main elements, okay, like the three dosha theory. This talks about the doshas. They are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Okay, and the elements, the Panchabhuta, air or the Vayu, ether space, that is Akash, fire is Agni, water is Jala. Okay, and am I missing anything? Okay, earth is Prithvi. So these five elements and three dosha. So they say like there need to be a balance between all these. So Vata controls movement, Pitta regulates metabolism and digestion, while Kapha, this provides structure and stability. And disease occurs when imbalance develops between these three dosha. Okay. So if you see like when there is problem with Bata, what we said, like which controls movement, okay, we are saying like there may be joint pain. Okay. Then Pitta, okay, like what we said that this regulates metabolism and digestion. So you see like talking about acidity, then other things which can happen like skin rash, excessive heat. Kapha, this provides structure and stability. So imbalance may cause obesity, lethargy, etc. Now let's come to yoga. So this aims to create balance between body and mind through exercise, breathing techniques, meditation, relaxation, and positive thinking. Yoga improves both physical and mental health, and its popularity is increasing worldwide for stress reduction, flexibility, and for chronic disease management. Naturopathy, okay, this is not in the Ayush system, but somehow this has come here. Okay, but this is like one of those alternative system of medicine. This believes that disease occur due to unhealthy lifestyle and accumulation of the toxins in the body. And treatment focuses on natural living, healthy diet, exercise, and improving the body's natural healing capacity. It emphasizes prevention and harmony with nature. Now coming to Unani system, U of Ayush. Unani medicine, this originated from Greek and Arabian traditions and was introduced in India, like as we have said, by its Muslim rulers. And it says that this is based on balance between four humors. These four humors are blood, flame, yellow bile, and black bile. Health depends on maintaining balance among these humors. The system also emphasizes environment and lifestyle factors. So in this table, you see these 4 humors and the associated element which is there. Okay. So let's go through the table once. Though these 4 humors in Unani medicines are dam or blood, bulgum or flame, safra that is yellow bile, and soda that is black bile. And again, each humor has got specific qualities and they have got specific functions in the body. Okay. And imbalance among these humors, they result in disease. So this theory resembles Ayurveda's concept of, you remember, the Tridosha balance. Okay. So if you see there is imbalance in blood, okay, you can see like hypertension may develop, flame, cough and cold. Yellow bile is talking about acidity. Black bile, we are having like depression, anxiety. Now coming to homeopathy, this was developed by Samuel Hahnemann and is based on the principle of like cures like, meaning that a substance that causes symptoms in a healthy person may be used in very small doses that treat similar symptoms in a sick person. These medicines are prepared through repeated dilution and shaking, a process called potentization. This system emphasizes individualized treatment and considers patients' physical, mental, and the emotional conditions. Okay, Siddha medicine. This is mainly practiced in South India and is associated with ancient Tamil Siddhas. It uses herbal medicine, minerals, dietary modification, and lifestyle practices to maintain balance and promote health. Some other alternative system of medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, that is based on the concept of yin and yang, okay, that the balance need to be maintained. And therapies include acupuncture. Acupuncture involves inserting needles at specific points to regulate energy flow. Another technique is moxibustion. This uses heat from burning herbs to improve circulation and relieve pain. Other therapies include auriculotherapy, which stimulates point on the ear, or sujok therapy, which is based on acupressure technique. So this promotes the exercise like Tai Chi. So, like the holistic medicine, this refers to total healthcare. Like when you say this word, okay, like holistic medicine, this usually may have two meaning. One maybe like one meaning maybe like this is meaning that providing care throughout the entire lifespan, from womb to tomb. Or another meaning can be like using all suitable forms of treatment, from traditional healing practice to modern critical care. What is important that patient's recovery is important. Okay. So we can say like holistic medicine combines modern and the traditional system of medicine to achieve recovery and well-being. It emphasizes prevention, lifestyle, emotional well-being, and comprehensive patient care. So in next few slides, we'll be seeing different models of health. Okay. So the first one is medical model of health or biomedical model of health. This focuses on biological causes of disease such as infection and body abnormalities. This emphasizes on diagnosis, medicine, surgery, and technology. While this is highly effective for acute illness, this has limitation because it often ignores psychological and social factors. Then we have got holistic model of health, what we are talking about holistic medicine. So the holistic model of health, these views health as complete physical, mental and social and spiritual well-being. These believe that disease results from imbalance in different aspects of life. This model promotes prevention, healthy lifestyle, and use of both modern and alternative therapies. We have got another model known as biopsychosocial model. It was proposed by George Engel. This combines biological, psychological, and social dimensions of health. This recognizes that emotion, behavior, social environment, and physical factors together influence health and illness. Now we have got social model of health. This model says that health is influenced by social, political, economic, environmental, and cultural condition. Can you name a cultural condition what you think is affecting health? Anyone in the class? Any cultural practices what you think has some effect on health?
Madam, can we talk of genital mutations in some religion, which is the part and parcels of their culture, that may affect the health of the person, ladies rather.
Yeah, that's very important, and I think I read about it in today's newspaper also. Anyone? Others in the class?
Ma'am, refusal to get benefits of family planning services uh, on the socio-religious consideration is a cultural factor which is
I think
detrimental to human
you
health.
speak little loudly. It's not heard. At least I am not hearing. I don't know how much Madam has heard about it.
Madam, in certain communities, people on the consideration of socio-religious backgrounds, they refuse to plan their families, which is detrimental for women health.
No, somehow your voice is not very clear. I think there are lots of echo is happening. Do you mind typing in the chat box?
Madam, one more thing came to my mind. That is a cultural group called Jehovah's Witnesses, and they refuse taking
The
blood
transmission.
even at the uh, their you mean crisis situations. Also, they don't accept blood from others. So that is also may affect the health.
Yeah, right. Others, please, if you want to contribute in the discussion.
Ma'am, malnutrition on the basis of gender.
Which cultural practice you think will be affecting malnutrition in the female children?
Ma'am, Rajasthan and all, and the villages, and it's shown in advertisements also that nutritious food is passed to the boy child and prohibited to the
So
girl.
culturally in India, like
Yes,
male
ma'am. India,
body is
it's
their
very much there, ma'am.
yeah. So AMG has written on social religious considerations, some communities do not practice contraception. Yeah, very right, AMG. True that many communities do not practice contraception, and so there may be like like a deterioration of the woman health. Thank you so much. Okay, right. Okay, sun exposure. Okay, not very sure as such. Like throughout the country, somehow vitamin D level somehow is very low. Okay, now let's see public health and public health model. So when you talk about public health and this public health model, this refers to organized effort of the society to prevent disease, promote health, and improve community well-being. Okay, so what is important here that this is organized effort to prevent disease. So WHO says that public health include all organized measures aimed at disease prevention, health promotion, and prolonging life among population. So some of the public health activities, public health model, this includes activities such as sanitation, immunization, disease surveillance, health education, and improving living condition. So this table again, this table looks very congested, but here we are seeing a comparison between different models of health. Okay, like we have gone through medical model, biopsychosocial model, social model, holistic model, and public health model. So in medical model, the main focus on physical and the biological cause. Biopsychosocial, okay, the psychosocial and social factors have been integrated. In social model, we are seeing the introduction of political as well as cultural factors. Okay, holistic model said complete well-being, and public health model that said health of the population and the communities. That is very important. So medical model views that disease occurs due to germs or body abnormalities. Biopsychosocial model, they says that this results from combined physical, mental, and behavioral and social influences. Social model says that disease is influenced by living conditions and social inequities. Okay. And you remember, like when we are talking about universal health coverage, and we said equity is one of the very important things. Okay. Financial protection. Holistic model, this occurs due to imbalance in defined aspects of life. Public health model says, okay, by multiple like factors, community and the environment factors. So in medical model, you see that role of the patient is passive. Okay. In other models, we are seeing like active participant, patient is the active participant, individual is the active participant. And public health model, this talks about community participation. And for our programs to become successful, remember that community participation is very important. Okay? We spoke about the main approach about that, but like let's see the limitations. Okay, so medical model, as we understand that this ignores the other dimensions. Okay, so this is less suitable for lifestyle related diseases. And biopsychosocial model, good but complex and time consuming to implement. Social model may be giving less attention to the biological causes of the disease. Okay. Spoke a lot basically about like health inequalities. So maybe like there is a less attention to biological causes of the disease. Holistic model is good, and but scientific evidence may be limited. We need to create. It looks good that complete well-being. Okay, and this is a combination of conventional as well as alternative system of medicine, but we really don't have that much scientific evidence for this model. And public health model, this requires strong coordination and resources and public participation. You just believe me, this is really not very easy. Okay, community participation, public participation, community mobilization, they are really not very easy. So it's good, but it's difficult also. So in the public health approach, this involves identifying health problem, determining the risk factors, finding preventive strategies, and implementing intervention on a large scale. Public health, as you are understanding, that this aims to improve health outcome at population level rather than focusing only on individual treatment. The three main functions of public health are assessment, identifying health problems and the needs, policy development, creating policies and the programs, assurance of the health service, ensuring that there is availability and quality of the health services. And these functions form the foundation of modern public health system worldwide. So the domains, okay. So these focus mainly on three major domains: health protection, health improvement, and health service improvement. Okay, so there is a difference: health improvement and health service improvement. So health protection includes activities, okay, such as, can you name some health protection activities? Okay, like their disease surveillance, food safety,
Vaccination,
Vaccination.
you're right, vaccination. Others will be, yeah. So remember these also, this surveillance, okay? Yeah, iron folic acid distribution. So that's a part, okay? That's a part of the whole big thing, iron folic acid distribution. Okay, so remember disease surveillance, remember food safety, okay? The foods, what we are eating, what we are getting, okay? The drinks we are drinking, sanitation, environmental measures which prevent disease outbreak. So all these activities, they promote, they protect communities. Okay. Now about health improvement. Okay. The activities on health improvement that focus on promoting healthy lifestyle, nutrition, physical activity, reducing harmful behavior. What can be harmful in behavior? Yeah, right, smoking. Okay, like very good. Smoking, tobacco consumption, alcohol use. So these are
Drug abusement.
rash driving. Okay, great. Physical inactivity. Okay. Now let's come to health service improvement. Okay. Health service improvement aims to strengthen healthcare system. They improve quality of the services, ensure accessibility, and increase efficiency in healthcare delivery. So, yeah, free NC checkup, yeah. So that's a like health service, health service improvement, okay. And at the same time, quality also, quality of the services what we are giving, that is also very important. Now let's come to this public sector and the private sector and the partnership, public private partnership. So public private partnership, they play an important role in strengthening healthcare delivery in India. So you see like management of PHCs, okay, primary health centers by NGOs, okay. That is an example. Then participation of the private practitioners, okay, in emergency obstetric cares. We have got schemes for that. Participation in the dialysis services, participation in diagnostic, participation in mobile medical units. So these public-private partnerships, these help to reduce the burden on government hospitals and improve service delivery in underserved areas. But what is important is regulation. Strong regulation and monitoring are necessary or important things to maintain quality as well as affordability. Okay. So in many remote areas also, what we see like mobile medical units, they functions like hospitals on wheels. Okay, they bring the healthcare directly to the villages where hospitals are difficult to access. So what are the key features of this public-private partnership? So you see, there need to be a shared.
Madam, if you will allow me, I'll tell two things about this public-private partnership which is happening in Jharkhand. Tata has built up a cancer hospital here in Ranchi. The land was provided by Jharkhand government free of cost, rather registration at 1 rupees, 23.5 acres of land, and the rest other expenditure has been done by Tata Trust itself. And so the hospital is providing services at CGHS rates, and there are Ayushman Bharat schemes, government schemes. So a lot of patients are getting free cancer services, treatment, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, all sorts of treatment are being given. And we are in fact providing the outreach program of screening of the non-communicable diseases also. Oral, breast and cervical cancers. For cervical cancers, it's a pap smear. Oral, we have the dentist visiting 9 districts of Jharkhand on a regular basis on different days to different wellness centers they are going, and we have in fact associated with the NHM also of the state health agency SHA. And another thing I wanted to tell, just forgot. I'll if you remember, I'll tell you again.
Okay, so thank you so much. That was really very important, and this helped us to understand. So, as you have understood, like from what Sarah was mentioning, that there need to be something shared. Okay, so there is a shared responsibility between government and the private organization. And what he had mentioned that because of this partnership, okay, there is a chance that we get better technology, better management practices, and specialized services into the public health system. Okay, so we got
Madam, ASA workers of those areas where our team is going, they collect the patients from their catchment areas and bring to that wellness centers on the assigned days. So there is a community participation also. Like ASA workers are from the community only of those areas which are trained and given some training, and they are working. So it's a community participation also, plus obviously it is a public-private partnerships also.
Right. But remember,
And we are in fact training of the CHO of that nursing officer is being trained by our staff, so that in future they can do on their own also.
excellent. Excellent example. Okay. So, like there are different models of public-private partnership. So, the first model is known as build, operate, and transfer model. Private agencies, they build, operate healthcare facilities before transferring them to government. Then there is something called concession model. Here, private providers manage services such as diagnostic or dialysis under government agreements. Then another model is social franchising model. This allows private providers to deliver standard services under a brand name or something recognized for a under a recognized public health program. Then we have got insurance-based public-private partnership like PMJ. These involve partnership between government and empaneled private hospitals. And also we have got community-based insurance model like SHEVA, Self-Employed Women's Associations. And this community-based insurance model, this also involved collective risk sharing by communities. So from here, we'll be like little bit coming to health financing and health insurance. So like before like coming to health financing, we'll just see a little bit about health insurance. So health insurance, what it does, it protects individuals and the families from unexpected medical expenses. Okay. So what was happening before that, Indian societies used to have joint families to run the support system, and family members used to care for sick, elderly, and financially dependent individuals. But the system is changing. Okay, so we have got now industrialization, urbanization, nuclear family. So suppose somebody like goes to even like a health facilities, what happens that the person loses the days, like ways. Okay, so and it also has been seen that illness often pushes families into poverty due to medical expenses. So insurance may be one important social protection mechanism. So social insurance in India began during the early 20th century. And we had got something called employee state insurance scheme. The Indian constitution also supports social welfare when we have got some article. And when we talk about health financing, that refers to methods used to raise, pool, and spend money for healthcare services. So when we talk actually about a financing system, a good financing system that ensures that people receive healthcare without financial hardship. One of our key points in universal health coverage. Governments play a major role in financing health services, but insurance system and private expenditure, they also have some contribution. So health financing is like the economic backbone of healthcare system. Like even the best hospitals cannot function without proper financing. So globally, we have got two important healthcare financing models, and both the models developed somewhere near 1950s. The Bismarck model is based on social insurance financed by employers and the employees. Okay, this is seen in countries like Germany and France. Then we have got another model, Beveridge model. This is tax funded. Here government finances here government finances and provide healthcare services as seen in India, United Kingdom. Okay. India follows a mixed system that includes government funding, insurance scheme, and private expenditure. And you can think that which system is more suitable for a large country like India, and write that in the chat box. I think we'll not discuss now. I'm seeing we don't have that much of time. But just write that which system you think are more suitable for a large country like India. So the core functions of health financing are three things. They are revenue collection, pooling of funds, and purchasing healthcare services. Revenue collection refers to gathering of funds through taxes, insurance premiums, or other contribution. Pooling means combining financial resources to spread risk among the population. Okay. And purchasing refers to using these funds to pay healthcare providers and services. Efficient financing systems ensure equitable healthcare access. So one of the major problems in India is, like, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that high level of out-of-pocket expenditure. Okay. So we have got schemes like Ayushman Bharat and PMJ, which aim to improve financial protection and reduce out-of-pocket expenditure. And I think you understand what is meant by out-of-pocket expenditure. Out-of-pocket expenditure refers to the money paid directly by individuals or the families while receiving healthcare services. And I think we discussed that this include consultation fee, medicine, surgery, diagnostics, and transport cost. India historically has a very high out-of-pocket expenditure, causing many families to borrow money, sell assets, or discontinue treatment. And remember that high out-of-pocket expenditure contributes significantly to poverty and healthcare inequity. Okay. So now coming to healthcare financing, the definition is that it means mobilization, allocation, and utilization of funds for healthcare services. Financing system ensure availability, accessibility, and sustainability of the healthcare. Effective financing is necessary not only for the hospitals and the doctors, but also for the medicines. Okay, like you said, free iron folic acid distribution. So we need effective financing for that. Infrastructure, vaccination programs. We wrote about vaccination and the disease control activities. So the objectives of healthcare financing are universal access to healthcare, improved quality and efficiency, financial protection from catastrophic expenditure. So India follows a mixed model involving public and private sectors, but a major share of healthcare expenditure is still borne directly by the households. This creates inequities because poorer populations struggle to access expensive healthcare services. So what are the sources of healthcare financing? So let's go through them one by one. So there are mainly three sources: government funding, private expenditure, and insurance scheme. So government funding, this supports public hospital, vaccination programs, maternal and child health services, and disease control activities. Okay. The private expenditure, this includes household, and the corporate spending. Okay. Private healthcare is widely used because, as we discussed, because of accessibility and the shorter waiting time, but contribute heavily to out-of-pocket expenditure. And insurance scheme, these help to reduce the financial burden on the families, and it works like on the concept of risk pooling. Okay, that many people contribute small amounts so that individuals facing major illness, they receive the financial support. We have discussed this slide. Now coming to health insurance. Health insurance provides, because this works on the concept of risk pooling, so this provides financial protection against medical expenses through collective risk sharing. Okay, individuals contribute premiums, and financial burden is distributed across a large population. So why we need this? Because medical costs are continuously increasing, especially for hospitalization and chronic diseases. Unexpected illness can cause catastrophic expenditure. So this can protect the families from financial hardships. So the concept of risk pooling, I think we discussed that risk spreads the healthcare cost among many people. Okay. And this is the principle behind, like health insurance in all worldwide. Only a small proportion of insured individuals may require expensive treatment at one time. So this is financially sustainable. So what are the types we have got? We have got social insurance, private insurance, and community-based insurance. And each system differs in the financing method, population coverage, and management structure. So like the social health insurance, they are the government supported programs for workers and the employees. Okay. So some of them you are aware, like ESIC, employee state insurance scheme, where both employers and the employees, they contribute to a common fund. Then we have got private health insurance. This is provided by the commercial companies. Individuals pay premium for financial coverage. Although private insurance improve access, but premiums may not be affordable for poorer section of the population, right? And we have got community-based insurance. They are managed by local groups or cooperatives. Community members, they contribute collectively to support healthcare expenses. These systems are useful in underserved rural areas. The Self-Employed Women's Association, what I mentioned earlier, that is one such example. Some government-based health insurance schemes are PMJ, CGHS, and ESI, Employees State Insurance Company. So these programs improve financial protection and healthcare access for different population groups. Ayushman Bharat, as we discussed yesterday, one of the world's largest health assurance scheme, provides financial coverage for poor and vulnerable population, aims to achieve universal health coverage. Okay. So these provide cashless hospitalization for secondary and the tertiary level of hospitals. Okay. And targets economically vulnerable population. Under Ayushman Health, we have also got health and wellness centers. Okay. And we have got the concept is to provide universal health coverage to all the people. So what are the challenges of healthcare financing? Okay. The healthcare main challenges are low public expenditure, high out-of-pocket expenditure, inadequate insurance coverage, and unequal healthcare distribution. So These are the challenges for healthcare financing in India. And we see them mainly in the rural and the underserved areas. So, India spends a relatively smaller percentage of GDP on health compared to many developed countries. So, this low funding, this affects infrastructure, manpower, and quality of care. And rural areas, they have shortage of specialists, okay, and urban areas have better infrastructure. Poor households are usually disproportionately affected by healthcare expenses. Treatment cost can lead to, like falling below poverty line, and these may reduce healthcare utilization, right, among the vulnerable groups. So what happens? That if people are coming late for treatment at the hospital, we are getting them at an advanced stage, okay? And the treatment cost, again, that will increase. So the role of government is to formulate financing policies, support insurance schemes, okay, like making like the programs like PMJ, regulate healthcare services, okay, like when you are talking about partnership, but this regulation is required, monitoring is required, and funding public hospitals and the national programs. Okay, so that's the role of the government in health financing. The private sector, diagnostics and insurance companies, they contribute significantly in the healthcare delivery. And this partnership, as we have seen, they are used to improve efficiency and accessibility. So this also works in financing. Okay, this also works in financing. That, like we said, like public-private partnership can be used for diagnostics, dialysis centers, and emergency transport system. So you can understand how this partnership is helping. We are coming to now health financing reforms. So we have got digital system we discussed yesterday. So these digital systems are improving the efficiency in claim management, record keeping, and insurance administration. Technology is helping to reduce delays and increase transparencies. Telemedicine also is improving access in the remote areas. Insurance coverage is there now for teleconsultation, and that is expanding. And telemedicine, like this helps, like, or this reduces the travel cost of the patients. Now about equity in health financing, that equity is about fair distribution. Okay, so there should be like a fair distribution of the resources what we have got, and all population groups, they should have equal access to care. And remember that for universal health coverage, equity is very important. And the concept of sustainable developmental goals, okay, you remember that when, in which year this came, sustainable developmental goal, sustainable development goal. We discussed this a little bit yesterday. You can just write this in the box.
2017, madam, 2017.
Okay, near about that year, that duration. Okay, not exactly that, but near in around that time. And the Astana Declaration, 40 years after Alma Ata Declaration.
Yeah, 2018, I suppose.
Right, great. Like this healthcare financing, this contribute to sustainable developmental goal, and this supports health, poverty reduction, and social well-being. Okay. So, how many goals are there in SDG?
17.
Great. Okay.
And health is 3.
Number 3. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So, poor health. These. Yeah. Thank you, MG. So, poor health reduces the productivity, right? And high disease burden that affects national development. And investment in health that improves human capital. So, health financing is very important. Okay. So, NGOs, like, they support awareness and healthcare delivery, they support vulnerable population across services, and they often collaborate with government and communities. This is a concept that catastrophic health expenditure, this occurs when healthcare costs that exceed household affordability. This may force families to cut essential expenses. Insurance and the subsidies, they reduces the catastrophic expenditures. So there are financial protection strategies. One of them is insurance scheme. Otherwise, there are government subsidies. Under national program, we have got many things which are given at free of cost. And in insurance scheme, we have this mechanism that is risk pooling. So healthcare financing and primary care are very important. And remember that preventive care is cost effective, and strong primary health care that actually can reduce the hospital burden. So gradually we are seeing that digital insurance and like that is increasing. Telemedicine integration is expanding, and technology is improving in healthcare accessibility. So insurance coverage is expected in India further. Government and private sector, they are working together for this. But what we need actually is to increase public health expenditure, strengthen primary healthcare services, and expand insurance coverage and expand awareness about it. Now let's come to national health policy. The health policy is what India has got. So the first health policy we have got in the year 1983. This focused on primary health care, universal access, community participation, and preventive and promotive health care. So this was strongly influenced by Alma Ata Declaration, which was in the year 1978. Then we have got another health policy that came in the year 2002. Okay. So this policy in the year 2002 was introduced to address changing disease pattern and healthcare challenges. Okay, population was growing at a very big rate. So this policy emphasized on decentralization, increased public investment, public-private partnership, what we spoke in details about disease surveillance and human resource development. This policy also recognized the burden of non-communicable diseases and the need for better infrastructure and quality assurance. So the last national health policy, we have got that in the year 2017. So from this policy, there is a major shift towards universal health coverage, okay, and comprehensive primary healthcare delivery. So let's see like the key features of this policy. So the first feature is universal health coverage, okay, and comprehensive healthcare delivery for all citizens. Then health improvement goals. What are the health improvement goals which are here? They are increased life expectancy, reduce maternal mortality, infant mortality, and overall disease burden. Another category is primary healthcare strengthening. Strengthening primary health services and developing health and wellness center. Affordable healthcare. Improve access to affordable healthcare include free drugs and diagnostic services. Promoting disease prevention, health promotion, and healthy lifestyle. Encouraging strategic purchasing. Okay, that government has to decide like what services need to be purchased, from whom the service need to be purchased, okay, and how that service need to be used. So this was a very big dimension of the health system reform. And efficient healthcare financing. Then promoting use of digital health technologies for better healthcare delivery and management. So these are all the features of the national health policy, and we are using them in the national programs. So this is the last slide for today. So this is just a broad slide. You will come across this slide in your module. That under National Health Mission, we have got broadly two big categories, that is National Rural Health Mission and National Urban Health Mission. Okay, and we have got different programs, communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases. We think of infrastructure maintenance, monitoring of the health systems. So all these are coming now under National Health Mission. Okay, I believe I had made a thank you slide, but I'm sorry, somehow I'm not able to show that. But what you can understand that, like just to summarize, like what we have discussed today. Today we have discussed that healthcare is not only about hospitals and the doctors. Healthcare is about financing. It's about community participation, making health policies. So policies gives us the direction, okay? Direction towards will be like walking, okay? Direction to which will be working and working. So healthcare is also about prevention and equity. Equity is another very big dimension. So India's healthcare delivery system has evolved from ancient tradition and colonial structures. There are contribution from British era also, into a complex public health network, what we are seeing nowadays. Okay, what we have here now in our healthcare delivery system, we have got government institutions, we have got private providers. We say it like from somebody like a pharmacy shop. Okay, they are also many a times working like a healthcare provider, to co-ops, to corporate hospitals. We have got NGOs, insurance system, and obviously community participation. And in our healthcare delivery system, healthcare financing remains a very critical component, because access to treatment depends not only on the availability of the services, okay, but also on affordability. Okay, so availability and affordability, they don't go hand in hand. So we have got public health programs and policies such as NRHM, Ayushman Bharat, and National Health Policy 2017. All of these, they aim to strengthen universal health coverage and reduce financial hardship. The future of healthcare in India, you know, I was having slides, but anyway, like that depends on stronger primary healthcare system, better financing mechanism, digital era, so with that digital innovation and equitable access for all sections of society. So that was the summary of today's class. Okay. As we still have got some time, I think I can take some comments, some questions. So you can unmute or you can write in the chat box.
Madam, I wanted to just take 1 minute of yours. In fact, that public-private partnership, Apollo has also working with the Jharkhand government, and they have made 100 Apollo digital dispensaries or telemedicine centers all over Jharkhand, where they are providing the teleconsultations, specialist consultations, digital health services, screening and monitoring facilities. So this was the public-private partnership with Jharkhand government and Apollo telehealth centers. Another thing I wanted to tell you about the build, operate, and transfer you had mentioned. So Tata have in fact constructed 17 hospitals in Assam. Most of them you'll be knowing. Our Prime Minister inaugurated 7 of them at one go, 2-3 years back. So now uh, that is on the mode of build, operate, and transfer. So they will be managing by Assam government. One such hospital has come up in Chandrapur of Maharashtra. If somebody is from Maharashtra is attending, then they should know it, of the same mode. So Tata has been doing a wonderful job from very beginning. From 1941, the first Tata Medical Hospital was TMH was built up in as a trust hospital, and after 1961, it is a central government institutions, and so many other institutions have come up in like Kolkata and other places of India. So those are all basically the CSR activities of Tata Sons, Tata Trusts, and all those things. So these two things I wanted to tell, madam. And in the district, madam, we are having the civil surgeons as head, who are also known as chief medical officers, CMO, or the civil surgeons. So this is the thing I wanted to tell.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I see that uh, participant Mr. Sagar has also mentioned a Tibetan traditional medicine in the chat box. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, good
I'm
evening.
Dr. Vishnu from Hyderabad.
Right.
Thank you for the great presentation. But we are able to see the only positive phase of the whole thing, whatever is happening for the last 79 years in India.
Okay.
From the time to time, the way of approach is changing very frequently. Guidelines are changing.
Okay.
Can we expect ideal guidelines to appear so that we can achieve the goals? Because I work most of the time for the TB and leprosy,
Okay.
right from the national TB program to re-revise national program of TB.
Right.
We never achieved our goals in the program for the last, you can say, 50 years.
Right.
Yeah. In your presentation, you have projected the positive side of all the planning in the Indian health system.
Okay.
What are the precautions to be take care by the administrators, especially health administrators, to take over the pitfalls and crises in implementation of the program? If you can highlight a couple of points in these areas, I'll be very, very happy and grateful to you, ma'am.
Vishnu sir, before madam answers, na, I'll have just one answer for
Yeah.
you.
Yes, sir.
The ratio of GDP for health services
Yes, sir.
has been very, very abysmal. I'll tell you. By
Yeah.
2021, it was all about 2%,
Yeah.
and we were supposed to achieve 2.5% by 2025.
Yes, sir.
So the main problem is the economics part only.
Yeah.
If we don't have enough fund to either for the old schemes or the new schemes to put in place, this problem will always be there.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's why that can be solved to certain extent by having the public-private partnerships and
Yes,
taking NGOs into fold.
Yes, sir.
Madam, if I could answer some of his apprehensions.
Not apprehension, sir. About 50% of my career, I worked for government of Andhra Pradesh, combined government. Later, I worked for international NGOs. What we are expecting in our guidelines is not really happening from the NGO side. For the last 9 years, international NGOs are suffering from financial crunch. And it to be critical, this is a bitter truth at the ground level. Most of the NGOs spending almost 60 to